URC round 2. This is where we should see some of the early contenders separating from the pack. My name is Mark. Let's talk rugby. URC round 2 this weekend. So, some people will dismiss these early games as not mattering that much, but when you think about it, if you get a win here, a bonus point win, you get 5 points. Those 5 points count just as much as they would at any other point of the season. And when it comes down to it, in those final 8 days, we saw big scramble last year to try and get into those playoffs. A win here could ultimately put a team in a good position to actually take advantage of a slip up by an opponent, or just keep them comfortable up there anyway. So, for me, it doesn't matter who's on the field for what teams. A win is a win. So, first game is the Saturday game. It's at 1 BST. This is Ospreys versus Zebre. So, both these teams lost their opening games. Ospreys lost away to Connacht. Zebre lost at home to Ulster. And, they had a chance to win it at the end, but couldn't do it. So, two teams looking for the opening win of the season. Zebre, I talked about them last year. They came close to winning at home, maybe at 4 or 5 different occasions. Couldn't get over the line. But away, they weren't all that competitive. So I'm expecting Ospreys to take a win here. And, Ospreys then, if they do win this one, they've got to then build on top of that. You can't just be, beating the teams you're expected to beat. You need to go beyond that. And I feel like a Welsh team has to emerge from the bottom of the table, that pack of them at the bottom of the table, and get up there and compete with the Scottish, the Irish, and Benetton, plus the South African teams as well. So I'd love to see a Welsh team in the mix there. It might be Ospreys this year. The next game then is at 3 o'clock, and that is Connacht versus Glasgow Warriors. So these two teams have both won their first games. Connacht, as we discussed, beat Ospreys at home. So a second home game for Connacht. They'd love to start with back-to-back home wins. Glasgow Warriors, they beat Leinster first out, so that's a massive scalp for them straight out the blocks. They're in second in the table at the moment. Connacht in fourth, but Glasgow, we saw them last year kind of flirting with the top of the table, but weren't able to, sustain the late charge up the table. Maybe this year, if they get a better start than they did last year, they could be right up there and, in that hunt for home semi-finals. That's why I talk about, form at this time of the year has a huge knock-on effect towards the end of the season. But on this one, I think Connacht might just nick this one, but if they do, it's going to be close and they're going to make their fans sweat on it. I think, it's not going to be an easy road for them. But Glasgow, they're looking really good, and I wouldn't be surprised if they pull off an away win, but I'm going to go for Connacht in this one. The next game then, at the same time, is the Stormers versus Scarlets. So this is 6th versus 16th. Stormers, a decent win away to the Lions to start for them. And, the Lions made it close at the end, but Stormers still were able to get the victory. Scarlets got absolutely destroyed by the Bulls. And, if you're you lose your first game heavily, you're propping up the table. There's, few other places that you want that you want to avoid going to than to the Stormers to play. They're one of the most ruthless teams in the URC, and if they smell blood, it could be another long afternoon for Scarlets players and fans alike. So in this one I have to go for Stormers for a win there. Next time we have Leinster versus the Sharks. So 15th versus 14th. Both lost their opening games. We're not very used to saying that about Leinster, but Glasgow just had the measure of them in that game. And, they couldn't produce their usual response in that. So at home now, first home game of the season, they're going to want to win that. Sharks, they had a tough start, in Thomond Park away to champions Munster, and now, going to a wounded Leinster as well. That's not really, what you would want for them. But yeah, this one, I think Leinster are going to win it. But the Sharks, they showed last year that their game, like that, they can actually compete away from home, and just that ability to move the ball as well. So I'm expecting them to get a few tries in it, but I think Leinster are going to take the win. Then we have Edinburgh, who had that narrow away win against the Dragons, but a decent start from them. They had a good start to last season as well, but then kind of fell away towards the middle and the end of the season. The Lions, they lost at home in the first round against the Stormers, but talked about last year, they struggled to win at home, but their tour of Europe, their first tour of Europe, went really well for them. They got some really handy wins on the road. They'd love to do that again, but I think Edinburgh are probably going to take this one. Then we're into the Sunday game. So the first game on the Sunday is Benetton versus Munster. So Benetton had that away win in Cardiff. Great start to the season from them. Munster won at home against the Sharks, the defending champions as well. Benetton would love to take that scalp, and make it 2 from 2. But I think Munster are probably going to pull off an away win in this one, but it's probably going to be tight. And then the next game on Sunday. So just before I talk about this, I don't know why did they do this? Why is there a game on at 2 p.m. and a game on at 2:30? Like, I don't get it. Because now, for me, I'm going to miss both these games because they're going to be in work. But if I was at home, my Sunday, if I had Sunday off, I'd watch these, like the 3 Sunday games. I watch them back to back, because I love rugby so much. I guess most people don't, and that's the problem, is that most people will only watch their own team, or maybe some of the big games, or teams or provinces from their own country or stuff like that. But for me, yeah, if I could, and if I was able to, if I was at home on a Saturday or Sunday, I would absolutely watch the hell out of the entire roster of URC games back to back, and absolutely love it as well. But yeah, Dragons versus Cardiff. So both lost their open games, and they're both pretty close. Cardiff lost by a point to Benetton. Dragons, I think it was 7 points, against Edinburgh. It was 7 or 5, it was something like that. But yeah, both looking for wins to open the season here. And both kind of, Dragons, they had that start of the season last year where it wasn't great. Then they had a bounce in the middle and then fell away very badly towards the end. Cardiff, they kind of yo-yoed a little bit in the league, but and there was a time when they were threatening to break into the playoffs, but didn't really materialize for them. But yeah, out of this one, it's hard to pick on this. I can't. I am doing a Super Brew, just my own. I probably will at some stage start publishing them as well on the channel once there's less World Cup rugby on. But I can't even remember what I picked for this. But looking at this, I'm honestly torn. Like, part of me is saying Dragons, they're gonna get a win at home, but then the other is saying, well, Cardiff, they probably got overall the better squad of the two. So can I plumb for a draw? But I guess I have to pick a winner. So I'm gonna go for, I haven't even decided yet, a Cardiff away win. How about that? And then the last game is a biggie. It's top of the table, or as close as to top of the table clash as we can get at this stage of the season. So Ulster versus Bulls, both won their opening games. Ulster currently in 5th, Bulls top of the table after that massive win against the Scarlets. Ulster, they just about scraped home against Zebre. So not amazing preparation for this game, honestly, but it's the first home game of the season at Kingspan Stadium. I know the Bulls are in great form, but I think Ulster are probably going to pip this one, so I'm gonna go for them. So after this round, we'll have had two rounds of games. So we probably, when we have the review at the start of the next week, we'll probably have a look at the table as well, because after one round it doesn't table doesn't really matter. After 2 rounds it's beginning to take shape a little bit, so at least we can have it there so that we can look back on it in the future. And then with the World Cup done this weekend, hopefully then the next round, so round 3, I can start doing some reviews on individual games rather than just doing a review of the entire fixture list. But we will review the entire fixture list wherever way we look at individual games anyway. But yeah, another exciting round of URC rugby. I just wish that the people in charge would time it a little bit better. But if you're not kind of rugbyed out, as it were, by the Rugby World Cup, let me know, what's your team and how do you think they've started the season and how do you think the season is going to go overall?